Welcome, fellow cosmic explorers, to Space Explorer. I'm your host, and today we're embarking on a journey not just through space, but through the peculiar annals of human ingenuity and frankly some downright bizarre ideas. We're counting down the top 7 strangest, most unbelievable space missions ever attempted. These aren't your everyday satellite launches or planetary flybys. No, these are the missions that make you tilt your head, raise an eyebrow, and ask, wait, we actually tried to do that. The line between audacious science and pure science fiction gets blurry, and it's in that hazy frontier that we find the most fascinating stories. As we rocket through this list, you'll see that the quest for knowledge has led us down some very strange orbits. We've sent needles into space, launched canine cosmonauts, and even planned one-way trips to other worlds. These missions represent the outer limits of our creativity and our willingness to try almost anything in the name of discovery. They remind us that the universe is not only stranger than we imagine, but it might just be stranger than we can imagine. Let the countdown begin. Kicking off our countdown at number 7 is a Cold War-era plan that sounds like something a supervillain would cook up. It's called Project Westford. Imagine this. The year is 1961. Global tensions are high and reliable long-distance communication is a massive strategic advantage. The problem? The ionosphere, the natural layer of charged particles we bounce radio waves off of, is susceptible to solar flares and potential enemy disruption. What was the solution proposed by MIT's Lincoln Lab? If you can't rely on nature's ionosphere, why not build your own? The answer was needles. Millions and millions of tiny copper needles, each about the thickness of a human hair. A dispenser packed with 480 million of these dipoles would be launched into orbit. Once released, they would spread out over time, forming a diffuse artificial ring around the Earth. That metallic cloud would act as a passive reflector for radio signals, creating a jam-proof global communication network. The first attempt in 1961 failed. The needles didn't disperse. At number 6, we honor the brave, four-legged pioneers of the space race, the Soviet space dogs. Long before Yuri Gagarin made his historic flight, the Soviet Union needed to answer a fundamental question. Could a living creature survive the brutal forces of launch, the weightlessness of orbit, and the fiery plunge of re-entry? To find out, they didn't turn to test pilots, they turned to the stray dogs of Moscow. Why strays? The scientists figured these tough, resilient animals were already accustomed to hardship, hunger, and cold. Perfect candidates for the rigors of spaceflight. The most famous of these canine cosmonauts is, of course, Laika. In 1957, aboard Sputnik 2, she became the first animal to orbit the Earth. It was a monumental achievement, a moment that electrified the world, but it's also a deeply tragic story. At the time, the technology for a safe re-entry from orbit hadn't been developed. It was a one-way trip. The mission was rushed for political reasons, to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution. Coming in at number 5, we have a mission that combines the high frontier of space with the humble traditions of the pub. I'm talking about the quest for space beer. Yes, you heard me right. In 2006, a collaboration between the Japanese brewery Sapporo, the Russian Academy of Sciences, and Okayama University decided to explore a question of profound cosmic importance. Can you make a decent pint in zero gravity? Well, not quite in zero G, but they wanted to see how the space environment would affect one of beer's key ingredients. The mission was wonderfully straightforward. They sent a batch of barley seeds up to the International Space Station. These weren't just any barley seeds. They were a strain called Haruna Nijo, a classic for brewing. For 5 months, these seeds orbited the Earth aboard the Zvezda service module, exposed to the unique conditions of microgravity and cosmic radiation. The goal was to see if this extraterrestrial journey would have any impact on the barley's genetics and, ultimately, its ability to be malted and brewed into beer. Sapporo's master brewers took the space-malted barley and crafted a special limited edition brew called Space Barley. Instead, Sapporo held a lottery for 250 lucky people to taste it, with proceeds going to charity. At number 4, we have a mission that could be the premise for a mind-bending science fiction film, but it's 100% real. I'm talking about NASA's groundbreaking twin study. For this experiment, NASA had a perfect 1 in 7 billion opportunity. They had a set of identical twins, Scott and Mark Kelly, and both were astronauts. Identical twins share the exact same DNA, making them the perfect control group for a study. So NASA devised an unprecedented experiment: send one twin into space for a year and keep the other on Earth. Astronaut Scott Kelly would spend nearly a year aboard the International Space Station, while his brother, retired astronaut Mark Kelly, would remain on the ground. For that entire year, scientists would conduct a battery of identical tests on both brothers. They took blood samples, DNA swabs, urine samples, conducted cognitive tests, ultrasounds, you name it. They measured everything imaginable, from the bacteria in their gut to the length of their telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of our chromosomes. This was a head-to-toe biological investigation. The goal was to get the most detailed picture ever of how long-duration spaceflight affects the human body at a molecular level. Cracking our top 3 is a mission so secret, we know more about the surface of Pluto than we do about its true purpose. This is the X-37B orbital test vehicle. Imagine a miniature, uncrewed version of the space shuttle. It launches vertically on a rocket, spends years, orbiting the Earth, and then lands horizontally on a runway like an airplane. It's reusable, it's robotic, it's operated by the US Space Force. And what it does up there is honestly one of the biggest mysteries in modern astronautics. The official line is that the X-37B is a testbed for new space technologies. The most recent completed mission, OTV-6, lasted a staggering 908 days. That's nearly 2.5 years in orbit. The secrecy is also extreme. Its orbital path is often not published, and amateur satellite trackers have a field day trying to spot it. The speculation runs wild. Is it a spy satellite, capable of maneuvering to different orbits to surveil various targets on the ground? It's a ghost in the machine of low Earth orbit. Our runner-up for the weirdest space mission is one that never actually left the ground, but captured the world's imagination and sparked intense controversy. I'm talking about Mars 1. Announced in 2012, this was a private Dutch venture with a goal so audacious it bordered on fantasy: to establish a permanent human colony on Mars. And here's the kicker that puts it so high on our list: it was a one-way trip. The applicants, the would-be colonists, would go to Mars with the full understanding that they would never return to Earth. The plan was a media spectacle from the start. Mars 1 opened up a global application process, and over 200,000 people from around the world signed up for a chance to leave everything behind. The revenue from this television spectacle was supposed to help fund the multi-billion-dollar mission. However, almost immediately, the project was riddled with criticism from the scientific and aerospace communities. A detailed feasibility study from MIT students found that, based on the project's own plans, the colonists would likely suffocate within 68 days. There were also immense financial and technological hurdles that the project never convincingly addressed. Where was the heavy lift rocket? The project eventually went bankrupt in 2019. Collapsing under the weight of its own ambition, Mars 1 remains a bizarre and cautionary tale, a dream of Mars that was built on television ratings and a whole lot of hope, but not quite enough rocket science. And now, the #1 weirdest space mission ever attempted. It's a mission that was secret, unauthorized, kinda beautiful. It's the story of the first, and so far, only, art gallery on another world, the Moon Museum. Tucked away in the landing leg of the Apollo 12 lunar module Intrepid is a tiny ceramic wafer, no bigger than your thumbnail. And etched onto this wafer is a miniature art gallery, featuring contributions from 6 of the most prominent artists of the 1960s, including Andy Warhol, Claes Oldenburg, Robert Rauschenberg. The story behind this cosmic art installation is a tale of clandestine creativity. The idea came from an artist named Forrest Frosty Myers. He wanted to do something poetic, to send a piece of human culture to the moon, along with all the science and engineering. Each agreed to contribute a small drawing. He connected with an engineer at Bell Labs, who had connections to the Apollo program. This engineer, Fred Waldhauer, took the 6 drawings and, using a process normally reserved for making telephone circuits, photo-etched them onto a tiny, durable ceramic chip. The plan was cloak and dagger. One of these chips was secretly passed to an engineer working on the lunar module, who, without official permission, attached it to a strut on the intrepid lander's leg. And there you have it, 7 of the most peculiar, daring, and downright weird voyages we've ever undertaken in the name of space exploration. These missions show us the incredible breadth of human imagination when we look up at the sky. So I have to ask, which one of these missions surprised you the most? Let me know your pick for the #1 weirdest mission in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey through the stranger side of space history, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Space Explorer and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. The universe is a big place, and we've got a lot more exploring to do. Thank you for joining me on this countdown. Our next countdown, we'll be diving into the most spectacular mission failures that taught us more than any success. You won't want to miss it.